Mm. Hi, can you hear me now? You're
Yes.
muted. Oh my God, I am so sorry.
That's okay. I'm like, I don't think this is the right link, but I can't wait to watch. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh,
It's all
no,
good.
I am so sorry.
You're all good. You're all good.
Okay, so I hope everyone else joins. I don't know who's here with us, but I hope everyone else joins.
It's
Let me
great.
just update.
Can people come and see us over here?
Yes, they can.
Oh, fabulous.
All right. Okay. Oh my God. I am so sorry, but
No,
I
do not
hope
apologize. This is fun. I've never done this before, actually. I honestly, no, I haven't. This is great.
Okay, so you are MG, right?
No, I am not. I'm Diana.
Okay, so someone else is here. I don't know who MG is. MG, please identify yourself. Tell everyone that, that we're here.
MG, can you hear us?
I think, okay. Okay. I don't know who MG is, but.
I can hear and see you both. I'm an AI developer. I got you. Hi,
Okay.
MG.
Okay,
All right,
that's
great.
Okay, so I am sorry. We are 10 minutes late, but we are going to do this. Diana, thank you so much for coming. You're amazing. And I wanted to share that with everyone. I wanted to share some insight with everyone. There's a lot of uncertainty in the market right now, both in the private sector and in the public sector. As you know, the government is laying people off. Um, there's a lot of upheaval, uncertainty, and I think AI is definitely the future. Is going to affect us, whether we keep our jobs, whether our jobs change. So it's just a very uncertain time. And so you've worked in pretty, important places like the Department of Defense, like the Department of Labor, and you have a lot of good insight on careers and how AI is going to impact careers. And right now you work in a I don't know, is it a nonprofit or
It's
like
a special project, and I'm
it's a
happy to
special
share
project?
like the short. I'm not here in that capacity, but if people are
Yes.
interested in what a special project is, I'm happy to explain that.
Yeah. I want to make it clear that neither Diana nor I are here on our official capacities. We are here as private individuals who want to help others. And so I want to start. Diana, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us, some of your qualifications, not all of them, but some of them.
Oh, qualification. Yeah. And what does the word qualifications mean these days? That's also part of this, right? So I'll tell you a little bit about my journey, which is still very much ongoing. And I think people can appreciate that most of us have a non-linear, non-sequential career pathway. And I think that's should be celebrated. And I think we have these ideas that we should be having this linear progression, and that's just not how the world works, and that can be a really good thing. So I'll just full stop say that, because I think we all need to be ready for more change, more transition, more stop it. You go back to school for a while, you go into the workforce for a while, you're doing something else for a little while, you're having pivoting in your career field and so on. So, hi, everyone. So good to be here. Thank you, Sorabel, for having me. What a delight, and really appreciate you and really appreciate what you're doing here. I am an economist by training, and try to wear that hat or look through that lens in the work that I'm doing, even though I don't really do straight economics at this point. But yeah, I've always been interested in the future of work and how technological change is impacting skills demand and college wage premiums and all that stuff. I actually, as you mentioned, started out doing occupational employment projections at the Bureau of Labor Statistics way back. And that really helped me learn about jobs, because as I assume some of us might be thinking about what we want to do next or what we want to be when we grow up. I graduated college and just really had no idea what was even out there. And so really being able to unpack what kinds of opportunities there were, what occupations and industries were out there, and what kinds of skills or roles were in demand within a given industry. So really being able to unpack that. And I've just carried that forward. I was a trade economist for a little while after the Great Recession in 2008, or the financial crisis. And then I really jumped into think tank world and was working a lot on young Americans and their economic prosperity. I did a lot on young college graduates, and really thought about how tech and talent are driving innovation and growth. So just, really focused on that part of the economy. And then moved to RAND to get my PhD, moved into national security, really saw how AI was starting to come, and similar to cyber before that, really have some implication on skills demand and how this could be different than previous general purpose technologies, and just really leaned into that and have been studying that since. That was really long. I'm sorry, Sorabel.
It's okay. It's fine. And I think, this shows how qualified you are to answer some of these questions that I have for you. And my first question to you is, I want to jump right in. How do you see AI fundamentally reshaping the economic landscape of talent in the workforce development? And I want you to go, the way I want to take this conversation is, everyone is saying that AI is going to replace us, it's going to automate everything, doctors, nurses, financial analysts, you name it, it's going to be replaced by AI. It's going to be done cheaper and faster, right? But no one is talking about the new industries that AI will create, the new jobs that AI is creating. And so I want you to please just reassure us and reassure me that there will be job creation alongside job displacement.
So no, yes, I think this is no, and yes, this is something that I think is at the top of most people's minds, and I will reassure you by saying that, in fact, the literature shows, there was a great paper by David Autor. I can put it in the comments later, but that shows that in the last 80 years, 60% of the jobs we have today were created. So that means that in the last 80 years, we've seen a turnover of occupation. Like 60% of the occupations we have today did not exist 80 years ago. Let me rephrase it. So creative destruction is real. And that is the phenomenon. As technology advances, as the economy advances, some roles disappear and new ones emerge. What has happened in the last phase of creative destruction is really this, what economists call the skills bias technological change. And so that is that tech skills have really taken off. And so the more technical you were, the higher wage premium you had. And then, this just reinforced the 4-year college degree and all of that. What we're seeing early signs of now is the opposite, where tech skills are becoming more democratized, not at the PhD level, but to me, this is a really unique and interesting time, because not only is AI coming on the scene much more rapidly than previous technological advancements. It's, every day we're learning about a new capability or a new model or a new something, right? Like there is just the pace of development and deployment has been incredible and something that we haven't seen before. And I think the challenge is, I'll come back to the augmentation versus automation part. The challenge is that the technology is developing faster than the policy and the regulation is to help navigate and mitigate the risk associated with it. So it really is about the private sector and how they're designing and deploying AI-enabled capabilities and what they are targeted to do, right? Because right now you say, okay, you have a profit motive because you're a company. And so what kinds of applications or capabilities are you going to be developing? And what are the implications of that? And are we too late, or are we right in time to help shift some of that? So there's a huge role in how AI policy at the federal and state level are going to help shape the question you're asking. So there is that. There is the idea that this is happening very quickly. And there is also this idea that we don't have good data to capture the question you are asking with real-time precision. And one of the things that us nerds talk a lot about is we need better occupational taxonomies. We need an accepted skills taxonomy. We do not have the data we need to be able to tell you in real time what new occupations are emerging, because we are stuck in an outdated taxonomy to talk about things that are changing very quickly. But I can tell you that we are starting to see early signs, and that is that people who know AI, who can integrate it in a multidisciplinary way, are seeing a lot more marketability than those that can't.
Okay, so that's great. That's great. But I want to go deeper. Like, okay, so people who know AI, first of all, can you define what knowing AI is? Like, I work in AI governance, and I know AI, but I don't know how to code. I'm a policy/governance person, so I know AI, but I don't know AI. And what do you mean by integrating it? Is it just knowing how to prompt, or is it like, what does that mean?
No, I think that's a really good question, because people were saying the same thing about AI literacy. What exactly is it? What do we need to know? Does everybody really need to take a computer science class in high school? And how much technical depth do you need to understand about LLMs to know AI? And I think it comes down to understanding what AI is, what it isn't, what responsible use looks like, understanding how to leverage AI tools in your daily life in a way that helps optimize your workflow or improve your quality of life. And there's different forms of AI, right? Like everybody is probably the most versed in generative AI tools like ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini or Copilot. And that's because these really came on the scene quickly and people could tangibly see right away the capability that these tools have. And how it could relate to things that we were already doing that we didn't want to have to do, like taskers and emails and summarizing documents and writing, travel reports. But there are other forms of AI too. Computer vision has been around now for more than a few years. And I wrote, natural language processing, there's image, and pattern recognition. Like there's just all of these different, there's autonomous systems, there's, humanoid robots are seeing advancement. I think there's a lot of uncertainty about what these tools are, how we are using them, right? Like when you're using your Alexa or your Siri, or right, there's AI in that. When your GPS is telling you the best route for where you want to go, there's AI in that. There's AI in so many things that we can't even see. And so understanding what AI, how these AI applications are impacting you and what responsible use looks like. I don't know that we need to all have this deep technical understanding of deep learning or reinforcement learning to know AI. I just think we need to understand that it's not a magic box. It's not pixie dust. It's not something that we can just blindly trust. We need to understand when we're using AI, source it appropriately, and understand what the appropriate applications are. And also, to your point about prompting, being able to think critically about what you're asking it to do and making sure that you're getting good outputs in return.
Okay, so let's go to the concrete now. Like, I'm sure there's technical people in this live stream. So I want to ask you both about, for the technical people here, and for students that are willing to go into the technical fields, like what are some of those technical skills that you recommend learning? Because people are hearing different things right now, like forget how to code, forget this, and don't learn data science because AI is going to do it. And then someone else says, oh, data engineering, that's the career of the future. Look at me, I'm making $300,000 and I just did a boot camp. So can you please separate the hype from the truth as much as you can? And then I'll ask you about non-technical skills, but I would like to get this, settle once and for all.
Well, and to your point, just being a software engineer was just considered gold not so long ago, and now it is really not. And there's multiple reasons for that. Our education and training ecosystem has caught up, so supply has caught up with demand. But to your point about evolving tech skills, I think there is still a strong demand, or there is a strong demand for people who can do machine learning, for people who can do data architecture and data engineering. There's still a good demand for people who can apply data science to industry or organization specific questions, right? So being able to understand that multidisciplinary angle of, okay, here is a challenge that my organization is facing. Let me design some metrics to tell a story that we can keep measuring in real time. Or here's how I'm going to improve the consumer experience by analyzing data on transactions. And right, like there is a lot of ways that you can still be very marketable with data science skills. I think particularly having contextualized data science skills. So I think that multidisciplinary angle is still really, really important. I also think that in terms of, should I do a boot camp? Boot camps are, they come and go in popularity. Certifications are a little bit of a wild, wild west. So there are some that are good, there are some that are less good. And how do you know which ones are going to actually have market value to an employer? But I would say that the idea that you don't need to know how to code at all is not true. It's because, there are tools that can help you code. I think it's being able to code and I call that AI plus X. So it's, I can code and I can apply it to, I can apply a problem solving set to this type of organization or this industry, right? And is part of a team. But I don't think it's just being a software engineer by itself at this point. But that said, learning how to code is learning how to think in a certain way. And I do think that's important. I just don't think that's going to be enough per se.
Okay, that's interesting. That's very interesting. So just to end this question, any like particular skills that you recommend, such as like Python, SQL, like any language that you would not?
They're all so, and at this point, and the point is that basically anybody can teach themselves how to use or to SQL or Python or R, right? I think being on top of what the different coding packages or coding languages are, and then staying along with the latest and using AI in places like GitHub and Copilot to be able to help keep your skills sharp and fresh and on the leading edge. So I think that is a rapidly evolving ecosystem, and I encourage people who are on the line to chime in if there's something I'm saying that you don't agree with. To me, I think that you can still be very marketable having SQL and Python on your resume. You can still be marketable with C++ on your resume. I think, there's differentiation between different types of software engineers, like front end or back end. And I do think that some are still are becoming more marketable than others, but everyone that can do software engineering as it applies to a certain industry or in a contextualized way as part of like a product development team or so on, is going to be marketable. And also I'll say that what's happening in the tech industry and the information industry has not yet diffused to the rest of industry. So healthcare, education, there's plenty of industries out there that still need technical skills. So there's still a lot of marketability there. I think it's becoming more democratized. So you need to be able to do that. And
right. So you're saying that like maybe tech will probably use an AI and replace a few engineers with that AI, which is, Mark Zuckerberg called it a mid-level engineer. But places like healthcare, like maybe other places that are more traditional, like there's still a big need for software engineers, for data scientists, for, those skills.
And software auditing too. That's a big thing.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So now I want to go.
I would further to put a testing and evaluation, I think, is another area that will still be really, really important.
Okay. Now I want to go to the non-technical part. As you know, there's a lot going on, and a lot of people are coming into the workforce, and they don't have technical skills. So first of all, I want to ask you, like, what are some transferable skills and some evergreen skills that people like me, like these international development professionals that have dedicated their lives to this profession and are now finding themselves out of work, how can they pivot? How can they shift? Like, can you help them? If you were a career coach, how will you help them think through this moment?
I think that the world is changing quickly, and people pivot all the time. So rest assured, the idea of pivoting in your career track is not new, and you can do it, and you'll land on your feet and do great things wherever you go. I think there are lots of skills that are transferable that are what we call non-academic. I say being nice, being being competent is a big one, and being able to unpack or decompose problems into executable steps. And we all do this every day, but actually then executing on them, being able to implement programs or projects, being able to track progress against milestones. So program management, for example, is always something that organizations need. Think about all of the functions of an organization, private or public. And the mix is going to look different in public versus private. The maturity of IT infrastructure is going to be different. But you can imagine that everybody has certain things that an organization will need, and thinking about how your ability to write, your ability to communicate effectively, how that's going to translate into different settings, because it will. And so many organizations are multinational, and they will have opportunities abroad, and being able to speak a foreign language can still be very, very marketable, especially when it's combined with business acumen. So I think you can not only think about individual skills or competencies, but the mix that you bring to the table that is unique and needed by a lot of different organizations. But I think a lot of people are there's a lot of risk with potentially pivoting, and so I think you have to make the decision of, hey, I'm going to open up my aperture a little bit. I've only done this, or I know this, but what is it that I really love? What is it that I'm really passionate about? Because I truly think that if we don't find joy, at least a little bit, in what we're doing, we're never going to be truly fulfilled. And so given how fast everything is changing, I think thinking about what your passion is and how you can align with that will send most things will fall into place, right? Like you can create a strategy about something that you can get behind.
Okay, I want to keep pushing on this, because it's not pushing back. It's not pushing.
Oh, you can push back.
Okay, but the thing is, like you're saying, well, writing is great, and learning another language is great, and project management is great, but AI can already do all of that. AI can write. AI has, they can translate. They can do projects. You just go to Claude Project.
You can do research too.
Right. So can I push back on that? And can you go deeper onto that?
Well, okay, because and it is a bit more forward leaning of how much do organizations accept these outputs, and how much are people willing to learn and use them. I do actually think that people who get on ahead of the curve and are able to leverage these tools, then you can do more. Then it's really about how can we think about what the human role is, and what the ChatGPT or whichever LLM you choose to use, when they spits out a project roadmap or a strategy, a marketing strategy, somebody's got to actually execute on that. And that's where the people skills become super important, right? So ChatGPT or whichever LLM you choose to use is not going to actually go through and execute on a full marketing strategy, at least not right now. These are still AI agents I think that's what you're referring to here. And they're very powerful, but they're still nascent. And I think that if you're going to have a multi-million-dollar contract to only rely on an AI agent, is not yet where we are at with that capability. That said, being able to use that to brainstorm a strategy, to come up with an initial project plan to then iterate on and react to, and put your critical thinking into it and given organizational goals and organizational culture, I think that's where you're going to be real value add. And then that implementation piece and the communication piece, the human interaction piece is still going to be really, really important. And there are plenty of organizations, especially in government, that are several years away on being, honest, but a little bit further away from leveraging things like AI agents, especially in a classified setting.
Okay. I think I've pushed far enough, and now I want to ask you, what are some free or low cost training opportunities that people can start taking, and people can take advantage of right now? Because there's all the tech companies are putting out this Gen AI intro, and so I think it's time for us to, because they want to be the leaders in that, right? So we should take advantage of that, right? So both for the people that were recently furloughed and laid off, what are some of those free and low cost training opportunities? And also, for young people who are deciding whether college is worth it or not. So I would love to hear from you as much as you can tell us, like, look at these industries and look at these certifications or these training opportunities.
Well, that's okay. So this isn't a cop out. I don't want to endorse particular companies or certifications. I will say there's a lot out there, and it's a bit overwhelming to navigate, but there are some platforms that do a really nice job of offering a lot of content that are that's either free or at a low price. The idea of massive open online courses from top universities is not new. There's platforms like Khan Academy and Udemy and edX and Coursera, right? There's now OpenAI, I believe, is getting into that business. There's plenty of platforms out there that offer free or low cost educational content targeted toward adult learners, targeted toward upskilling. The challenge will be thinking about what it is that you want to upskill in. So it's always good to take a what is AI class if you don't know what it is already, although the best way to upskill yourself in AI, in addition to taking a primer class, is to use the tools and think through. And it's kind of like coding. When I learned to code, and notice the languages we aren't talking about, like Stata and SAS, and right, like, so they're, MATLAB. And so coding languages do come and go, back to the earlier point. But what doesn't come and go is, oh, okay, this is a different way of thinking. Let me actually use these tools and realize what their capabilities are, which LLMs are better than others for certain types of work. And really becoming sophisticated at leveraging these tools to the best of your ability. That is a good way to learn about AI. But then you want to say, what is it that excites me or gives me passion? So I don't know if before, a couple of years ago, it was, oh, everybody needs to go to software and coding boot camp. And a lot of those, there was a huge boom in boot camps being offered, and then it kind of contracted a bit. I don't think everybody needs to be a software engineer. I don't think everybody needs to be an AI engineer. I think it will behoove you, even in non-technical professions, to understand what these tools are and how you can use them in your setting. But thinking about upskilling, there is a certification out there for everything. Just know that maybe this is self-enrichment for you to explore what your options are and explore how what you're passionate about intersects with a new area or a new industry that you hadn't previously been in. So, it really is about making sure that you're thinking about the different skills that you want to learn and how you want to apply those skills. But there's plenty of content out there, and a lot of the tech companies have their own certifications, but that doesn't mean that everybody needs to go and take the cloud certification, right?
And I want to follow up on that, because right up to now, everyone is talking about only AI, as if AI is the only thing. But there's a lot of adjacent industries that are supporting AI. So, for example, robotics, cloud, I don't know, help me out. But can you mention some other industries that, let's say I don't want to do AI, like I'm sick of it, but I can still go and do cloud, or maybe even do advanced manufacturing of chips, right? So can you talk about those adjacent industries that are going to grow along with AI?
So I think if you think about the AI stack and you think about all the enablers, you definitely, and there's also a policy element too. Like the Chips and Science Act is, a very intentional industrial policy that invested quite a bit in building up U.S. manufacturing capability in chips, right? So then that there are going to be opportunities there, just depending on what the policy landscape and the funding landscape looks like. So there is that piece. But for the rest of the AI stack, energy is a big one, right? Data infrastructure is a big one. People are talking about digital highways. There is the R&D piece that's never going to go away. And you can think of in the pharmaceutical industry, all of the different roles that are associated with R&D. It's not just being a PhD researcher, right? You're doing testing and evaluation. You're doing all kinds of program management, right? So again, like that just or program evaluation, or being a product manager. There's lots of different skill sets that are adjacent, and there's also different. So to your point, Sorabel, there's different occupations that are adjacent to AI, and there's also different industries that are adjacent to the tech companies that are leading out front on developing new AI capabilities. But I think defense is another ecosystem that there's a lot of opportunity there. The defense industrial base, right? There's a lot of support that goes into creating an AI system, right? And actually integrating it into an existing capability or platform, as these companies are selling a service and a capability, but it's got to get integrated into something. So you can imagine that as AI diffuses across the economy, there are going to be roles in every industry that people could think about how they, just again, where are you passionate about? What do you want to do? But how can I orient myself in that direction?
Okay. So I want to ask you one last question before I jump into another question. So how do I put this question? So there are people that are all in on AI, like, let's do this. Yes. Most other people are either like keeping their blinders on. They don't want to hear it. They're sick of it. And they just want to do their job, and they don't want to do this. So I'm wondering, like, what do you think are the potential economic disparities in this AI adoption? Like, the minority takes it all in and they get rich from it, and what happens to those people who either don't want to, or can't, or they're too busy in life to pay attention to this? What do you think are the consequences of not getting into this train? Let's just say that, for lack of a better way to put it.
No, I think it's so, and even with the internet, that was supposed to be this great equalizer, right? If access to education is free, why haven't we closed some of these divides? And so I think it is the right question. And what I think is unique about AI is that it's affecting a different segment of the workforce first, and that is middle to upper class white collar jobs, and that's different. And so my intuition wants to say that it's that will get a policy response. I think it will be the next wave of globalization, right? Because you say, okay, manufacturing and middle skill jobs, and we got hollowed out because of globalization and technological progress, right? It was both that hollowed out a lot of middle class jobs. But I think you'll actually see a rise, to your earlier question about what jobs are emerging. You'll see a rise in skilled technical jobs that do not require a 4-year degree or a master's degree to do, like work in a data center. But you will see more middle income jobs come back, and then it really is about making sure that we are encouraging and facilitating access to those opportunities through a robust community college and technical college infrastructure that is prepared to offer credentials that align with the needs of these industries, and being able to do it in a way. I'm a huge proponent of stackable credentials, another
Yes, me too.
Yeah, I'm a huge proponent of that, and I really think this could be a big moment if we do our policy work and have some tough conversations about the current credentialing infrastructure. But there has to be an alignment of incentives. There has to be. It is a very multi-stakeholder conversation to have, but I do think that you will see more opportunities coming for skilled technical jobs, and it's really so it will look a little bit different, but this is really unique in that it's already hitting some of the white collar jobs that previously were some in the most high demand. So it's just a very interesting dynamic that is very rapidly unfolding.
Yes. So I guess my last question before we jump to questions is, what strategies should individuals use to ensure that they are ready for the future of work? And I want to ask you about, us white collar workers and also blue collar workers. Like, what can they do and what can we do?
So here's something that we should all always be doing, and I'm even guilty of it, is continuously learning. Is always having our eyes and ears open, and not just assuming that we should always have, it's hire to retire, and that, we're an engineer and we're always going to be an engineer and that's it. And just being a little more open-minded about, other ways that you could grow and stretch across industries or across problem sets. There has been a lot of evolution of occupation since I've started looking at this, even in places like healthcare, which I think is going to be a sector hugely affected by AI, and not necessarily in a bad way, but can you imagine how delivery of healthcare could change in the next 10 years? I think it could be really profound, and thinking about outcomes, but then you're thinking about roles and responsibilities of the surgeon and the nurse, all the way through to the back office. So I really do think that you're just going to continue to see a lot of change. And when it comes to being able to think strategically about a career pivot, it's just keeping your eyes and your ears open. What is the latest technology? Let me try it. Let's see how it works. How might I be able to use that? There's going to be a new model that comes out. Well, let me try that one too. And just being curious and reading up, I think that will go a long way. Having conversations, building your network, especially here in DC, that having a good, strong network can go a long way in helping you learn about what's out there. How many times do we realize, oh, I had no idea that this company would be hiring for that role, or, oh, I didn't know that this industry actually did this type of work? Well, a lot of occupations are found across industries. It's the tech industry that is very concentrated with software engineers and data scientists. But outside of that, most industries have a much more even spread of occupations. So just, being open and having conversation and being curious.
Okay. Okay. So thank you, Diana. I could go on for days talking about this. This is fascinating to me, especially when you say industrial policy. I think you capture it really well, because that's I'm such a nerd. Like, I love that stuff. But I want to get to people's questions, and the first one is, how can one get into AI policy and governance? Any foundational courses to do? There are many certifications coming up, like Blue Dot, and so I want to know, like, the person wants to know your thoughts, and I do too.
I want to hear your thoughts first. I feel like I've been on a stage. Please share your thoughts.
Yeah. So for me, so the most important thing that I'm going to say is that a certification will not get you a job in AI policy. I came into AI policy. I have a strong policy background. I went to school for that. I went to school for public policy, and then I worked in the government as a U.S. diplomat for 8 years. And so I have that, background. And then I went into the tech sector, and I was working on both policy and operations in trust and safety. So content moderation. And then I went to Congress, and now I'm in the government. So, that's how I got into AI governance. I did take a course. It's called, it's from Babel AI. I'm going to drop the link here. And I'm happy to talk more about it if you reach out to me on LinkedIn. But, it's an amazing course, and I love it. But it did not get me a job in AI policy. So I want to be very clear about that. And to Diana's point, there's no major for AI policy, as far as I know. So there's no like one way that you can get into AI policy. Study this and you'll get a job in that. I think it's a roundabout way, how you sell your skills, how you sell your experience, that will help you get into AI policy. It's not impossible, but I just want to warn people that one certification will not get you a job in AI policy. What do you think? Do you have anything to add, Diana, or?
So I will say that depending on, there are actually a number of local groups. So being in DC will be helpful for you. And there's big P policy and little P policy. So distinguishing between state and local governments, which are also doing AI policy. And there's probably a lot of opportunities there. And I just was, I heard about Working for America, which is an awesome site that's really trying to match public sector talent to state and local government opportunities. So there are groups out there that are trying to help build AI policy in the little P context. I think for the big P context, there are groups there's communities. So like Globally is a great organization. They have young professionals in foreign policy, right? There are groups like this. And there are also universities, a huge university ecosystem here in DC that have a lot of AI policy oriented events. It's a great way to go and meet people, because a lot of people, correct me if I'm wrong, you are working in a setting like you're working in DoD policy, and then all of a sudden you want to do tech policy, and an opportunity comes up, and you start working on AI policy. Sometimes it's because you're curious and you're teaching yourself. I've taught myself a lot about military recruiting, for example, and so you're able to leverage it. You're curious. You're learning about AI. You're trying to understand the risk frameworks, and right. So you're working in an adjacent way. You're teaching yourself some skills. You're building your network. You're going to events, and all of a sudden an opportunity might open up. And it's also about knowing where these roles are, like who is doing AI policy and where within an organization. So just being very strategic And there are resources out there that can help guide you too. But Sorabel, correct me if you think that I missed something.
I agree. And I'm also going to say that I'm from New York City, right? But I grew up in DC, meaning that my very first jobs, internships, almost my entire career has been in the DC area. So that has helped because this is the policy capital of the world, right? So, having that network and going to a school that feeds people into DC, that also helps a lot. So if you're early still in your career and you don't have any opposition to moving here, I think that's a good way that you can get into that field.
Because there's a lot of policy jobs.
Yeah.
And so that's half the battle right there. And then you start getting on projects that involve technology policy. And especially if you're talking to the federal government, as you know, Sorabel, correct me if I'm wrong, but some organizations are much more mature in how they're thinking about AI policy than others. And so, it really is about what organization you want to go to, where they are at in their AI policy journey or roadmap or strategy. And then thinking about the different roles that you could be aligned to be able to work on that set of questions.
And I just had one last thing. I've also worked on the Hill. And, if you have the opportunity to work on the Hill, that is amazing because that will definitely, it'll give you like a master's degree in policy making. And, it's an amazing way to get into that. I do want to go to the next question. I have Win Law, and he's asking, do lay people tend to know how AI actually works and what it actually does? Plenty of room for confusion as people catch up with the tech. So does it make sense to you, Diana?
It does. And I'm sorry, when we covered it a little bit earlier, so I'll try to be brief. Yeah. It is up to you how much technical depth you want to have on reinforcement learning, deep learning, neural networks, and so on, right? I think as a lay person, you want to understand what these tools are, what data they were trained on, what the potential biases could be, and and what the uses are, and then knowing what they can do for you and what they are not going to do for you, right? Like people just really jump as we are moving on this ladder from AI, Gen AI, agentic AI, moving toward AGI and eventually ASI or artificial superintelligence. You want to understand generally what these tools or capabilities are. You generally want to understand, and there's plenty of foundational courses that can unpack in a very layman's term way. I know code.org, for example, has a lot of this content, just understanding what they are, how they work, but at a very basic high level, and then encouraging you to just be responsible users for, okay, does this output make sense? How can I create a better prompt if you're talking about an LLM to get me what I want? How am I appropriately sourcing it? How am I appropriately integrating it into my workflow? But, I don't think that you need to have this technical depth, but that if you are interested in that, you can. You just need to understand what the data has been, what data it was trained on, and then what are the potential biases as you are making human judgments about what the results are telling you and how to use them.
Okay. Last question, Diana. I know we're at time, but just wanted to ask this last question and then we'll wrap it up. Is this coming age going to be of generalists? Just people good at basic human skills, business skills, and all specialized knowledge be done by technology? I think that's a good question.
Do you have a thought on it? I would love to hear your thought.
I think I agree with that, how the question was framed. Like, I think people are just going to be like type of like CEO types, good at motivating people, leading, and building the relationships and stakeholder management. And then the specialized knowledge will be done by technology. I don't want to say AI, but technology. Like you no longer need a marketing team of 20 people when you can tell AI, prompt it really well and tell them, come up with this marketing campaign and this and that. You no longer need 20 software engineers. You can probably get the work done with 10. So yeah, so those people that just have good people skills and soft skills and know how to build relationships, I think they're going to win out. I hate to say win out because it's not a competition, but I think they're going to be ahead. I think.
Okay, so I don't totally disagree, but I'm going to push back a little bit. I think you'll still need some specialization. So I do agree, AI can democratize a lot of skills that had been previously left to people with advanced degrees and technical aptitude. And I think AI can help democratize that in a really powerful way if we as a society are able to harness that potential economic gain and create opportunities for everyone to realize that gain. I do think that it is hard to say exactly what the future is. And so I should have put this disclaimer at the beginning, but there have been many waves where people have said, oh, jobs are going to be completely automated away, and they just haven't been, right? Like, so I understand that there is this counter argument that is, accountants were supposed to be automated away. There was, when automation came online, or the techniques or tools became commercialized, that a lot of jobs were going to be displaced or disrupted, and it didn't quite happen that way. So there is a cautionary tale there. That said, we've been talking a lot in this last hour about how AI is different, and I do believe that it is. But I do think you're going to see AI plus X. So it's being able to have some skills, but also being able to contextualize it in a way that's specific to a given role or responsibility. And one thing we didn't quite talk about is the nature of a job and what it means to have a job. And are we going to be, an interesting question could be, are we all going to be freelance? And what is that employer-employee contract going to look like? I think one of the things that really binds us right now is health insurance. And so what happens when compensation packages start to change, and that gets into how AI could disrupt healthcare. And so, I think we're in for a really interesting time ahead, but on multiple fronts when it comes to labor market dynamics. And I do think you'll still see a mix and match of skills, but being able to do AI plus will always be to your benefit, and having those good communication skills too.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Diana. And I'm sorry we went over by a little bit. I think you should come back to my show like a few months from now. I'm going to let you rest for a little bit, but I want to have you back because I was taking some notes, and I feel like I can write a book just from what I've learned. So thank you. I really appreciate it. I'm sorry for the difficulties, but we appreciate you. Thank you so much.
No, thank you so much. This was so fun. I really appreciate the opportunity and to get to chat with you today. So thank you.
Thank you. Have a good one. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.